Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey folks, Jason here. Just had a fantastic conversation with Natalie Doyle Oldfield. Now, she specializes in trust. She wrote a book called The Power of Trust, and it really talks about how companies build trust with their customers. And, we talk about the gambit. We talk about the face-to-face interactions, how marketing plays a part in that, and truly getting down to how salespeople build trust. But really, it comes down to how companies interact with their customer base and being authentic and empathetic and really high degrees of integrity. And so it's just a kind of a fascinating journey. And we talked a little bit about how do you achieve that in an online setting where you can't go face to face, and what you've presented in that online setting, in that e-commerce marketplace, that how do you build trust in that environment? Because ultimately people do buy from companies and people that they trust. So again, fascinating discussion. And I really hope you all enjoy our conversation. This episode was brought to you by my friends at Profit2. I invited their founder, Dave Roller, on the show to talk about their pricing philosophy and maybe spill the secret sauce. Over the course of my interview with Dave, I found that his methods were much in alignment with the manual digging process I've shared with clients over the years. His algorithms just did it a whole lot faster and easier than I could. It also helps that he comes from a distribution background and understands the needs of the wholesale distributor. Since Profit2 is a software as a service, and the operative word being service, they're uniquely positioned to provide real horsepower to your internal team. Come take a look at what Profit2 can do for you at www.profit2.com. That's profit with a number 2. And be sure to let them know you heard about them on the Distribution Talk podcast. Well, Natalie, welcome to Distribution Talk. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with me and share a little bit about your story.
Thanks for having me.
So one of the things I like to ask people, you're an author, you're a speaker, you go around giving advice, but it had to start from somewhere. So would you mind giving us a little background on, how did you get involved and why did you choose to focus on trust and those types of relationships? So please.
It's a short story and it's a long story. So why did I get involved and learn to do trust? Well, I spent about 25 years of my life in business in various marketing and communication type roles for small, medium, global companies, all primarily in the IT sector. And in one role, the role that I was in before I started Success Through Trust 10 years ago, I was responsible for marketing, and we marketed software and services to what we called resellers or distributors or partners around the world. And in that role in marketing, I did marketing communications, lead activation, campaign development, product management, all this good stuff, and all the things in marketing. And I loved it. In my role, I was very fortunate. I was able to get lots of input from customers and be at customer events, and really love that part, and also love the customer research part. And my manager, the CEO, asked me if I would take over sales as well. I was doing some partnership development and some reseller development. I didn't do sales. And I was saying, no, I don't want to do that. Because as you know, Jason, sales is very accountable, right?
Natalie, you sound exactly like my wife. I mean, she has been in marketing, in high-tech marketing for decades. And exactly, sales is accountable. I'm so glad you said that.
And, the truth is, I didn't want to fail. I was open to doing it, but I didn't want to fail. Anyway, fast forward, I said yes. And I said yes in August 2008. And then the market crashed And we sold our products and services primarily to the hospitality industry, and nobody stayed in hotels. So I had to figure out, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? And what am I going to do? Because all orders were on hold. People weren't doing new projects. They weren't retrofitting. There was not expansion. We lost some sales. So I started asking around, trying to figure out, well, how can I learn how to sell? I had never sold before. I didn't know how to do this. So I asked the people that I thought were really successful in sales. And they all said to me, Natalie, there's no magic bullet. There's no process really. It's all about relationships. So my team and I really focused on serving our customers and really focused on helping them in any way we could. And we didn't sell. We just focused on the customer. And lo and behold, in time, the sales went back up. And we started learning and getting new opportunities and partnership opportunities and referrals. And I got so interested in this that I went back to university and did graduate research in how is it that customers decide to buy in a business-to-business relationship. And what I found out very quickly on in my research is that they decide to buy based on trust. Now, I was working full-time while I was doing my graduate research, and I did finish the program a long time ago in 2011 and continued to do this research. And then while doing it, I created a framework and a proprietary system to teach people how to build in a step-by-step process based on the scientific method and based on science and evidence of how to build relationships of trust. I got so excited in it, Jason, that I started teaching people. And then a couple of years later, I created a commercial proprietary measurement tool to actually measure a customer's or a distributor's or a stakeholder's trust in a company. And now I do this full time. I have been for 10 years. As you mentioned, I wrote a book about it called The Power of Trust, How Top Companies Build, Manage, and Protect It, and really teach people now full time through training programs. I have an online course called Becoming a Trusted Advisor, and my book is on Amazon. And the big part of my business is training and working with companies directly to train their people on how to learn to either build, strengthen, or protect trust. So I do that for companies. And I also have a program where maybe a company just wants to send 1, 2, or 3 people to a program. So I have what I call group programs, and they're called Becoming a Trusted Advisor.
This really all started because you were terrified of becoming a sales manager or selling.
Well, yes. And I was really intrigued by how is it that customers decide to buy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, some companies, we all know companies that do really, really well and companies that don't. So when I was asking these questions, I really wanted to understand what's the difference. And it's simple, yet it's complex. We buy from companies we trust. We work for companies we trust. We partner with companies we trust. We invest in companies we trust. And unless we trust, we don't buy. And I also believe very firmly that none of us want to be sold to, Jason. I really believe we all want to choose to buy from a company that we trust or buy a product we trust. And from people we trust. That's the key word.
Absolutely. Yeah,
it's
from
about
people.
The people.
Yeah. Interesting. And I want to go down that trail in a second before I lose this and forget about it. I find it fascinating that people, they go into marketing. And this is something that young people coming out of university at this point, they go into marketing and nobody seems to want to go into sales. Nobody wants to go into sales. And I still try to figure that out. And I have a lot of good friends that are salespeople, professional salespeople. and they can't really give me a good answer why people choose marketing versus sales. I guess, why does marketing feel like the easier, softer way?
I mean, there's a bit of a stigma around sales, but the reality is, in all our businesses, nothing happens until a sale is made.
My sales audience is going to love you for this. Love
It's
you.
true.
They're going to love you for this.
True,
Yeah.
right? I'm a business owner. Nothing happens until a sale is
Totally
made.
agree. Yeah.
And there is a bit of a stigma. I mean, I worked in a call center raising money when I was in university for my university. Yes, I was asking if they wanted to donate money to the university, and I was excited to do it because I believed in the university and believed in the programs. However, if I think back and we really look at it closely, that's sales. And we are all in sales. You could be the manager of a department or in a warehouse, and you have 5 people on your team. You are selling to them the idea of why we want to be more efficient or why we want to be more customer focused. And I truly believe that every single company, every single organization, but I'm going to just talk companies because you and I primarily work with private companies and for-profit organizations.
Right.
Every single company is in business to serve a customer.
Mm-hmm.
And customers buy products and services from companies, right? It's all about sales, really, at the end of the day. And it's all about relationships. And so I'm not going to buy from, I'm not going to support you unless I trust you. So it's fundamental. And I think younger people, and I have 2 children that are young adults. I have a son who just started working last year, and he's a professional engineer. He works for an engineering company. And I have a daughter that's still in university. And in my son's role as a junior engineer, he meets with clients. And I make it very clear to him that your role is to help your client. And your role is also to make sure that you are representing your company the right way, which is sales.
It is. It is. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. I just, I know that I have a lot. In fact, I facilitate a group of marketing professionals, and there is definitely a divide between the two, marketing and sales, but really, ultimately, I think if marketing people would understand the sales side of it, they could probably become more effective in that role.
In the traditional sense, if you look at a textbook on marketing, sales is part of marketing. Marketing is all about lead generation, and sales is a function of marketing. But a lot of folks look at marketing as different than sales, but it's not.
I think it definitely is a relationship in that. The way I've always thought about this analogy is, marketing is the volley and the sales is the spike. That's it, and that's the way I've always kind of thought about it, that you're right. Marketing cannot live unto its own. It can't live in a vacuum, that ultimately, you're right. Something has to be sold, or else there's really no point in doing it any longer. So I appreciate you taking that little journey with me there. But let's talk a little bit about building trust, and what you found, through your research and now through your training is, how do we build trust with customers, and further on, how do we build trust with customers that we can't see face to face?
We build trust in interactions, and it is a personal thing. So we build trust with people. So companies, one fundamental truth for us to keep in mind is that companies are made up of people, and we put our trust in people. And best practice, the way we build trust with customers is through these interactions and through our experiences. And what I've found, the science and the evidence shows that there's really 3 main components to building trust. And from those components are, in my model, the 8 principles of building and protecting trust. Those 3 main components, Jason, I liken to a triangle. If you think about a triangle, there are 3 sides. We build trust based on how we communicate, how we behave, and how we serve.
Okay.
So it's communication that is empathetic and it's honest and compassionate and it's consistent and it's clear and conversational and transparent. And then it's behaviors that are ethical, with integrity, acting in the best interest of others, and authentic. And then it's service that is authentic and sincere and committed. So these three components, from those come the 8 principles of trust. And when we apply these principles in the way that we communicate, the way we behave, and the way we serve, we build trust. And trust is a skill. You can cultivate it, develop it, and learn it. And a big part of what I do is really walking through and teaching people how to apply these principles in the step-by-step process to cultivate and develop relationships of trust.
In your experience with these 3 basic principles, and I almost want to say, 3 legs of a stool, if I could here, which one of them do you find that companies come up short on? Which is the one that really, it seems to be the one that they really do not do well?
Well, trust is about principled behavior.
Okay.
So you can be the best communicator in the world, Jason.
Yeah.
But if you don't walk the talk and you don't act in my best interests and have poor intentions and your motives are not sincere, you fall down. There are 3 main components, and from those come principles. Where people fall down, where I see, and where people find it most difficult is around acting in the best interests of the customer or the stakeholder or the distributor and the public. It's the behavior part that's difficult. So as an example, you could be a manufacturing company, Jason, that makes the best product in the world. Okay?
Sure.
In your space. Say you're in the flooring space and you manufacturing flooring products and you sell all your products to a wholesaler or distributor and you deliver your products on time. You communicate that this is what features and functions, if you will, of the flooring is. Yet when someone calls in to ask a question or ask for service, you don't pick up the phone, or you don't respond to them, or you don't respond in a timely manner, or you're not consistent and predictable and reliable in your behavior. Maybe sometimes you call and you're very helpful and you're happy someone called, and another time you call in and someone on the front lines is not this customer focused as you would want them to be as the leader in the company. And they say, yes, no problem. I'll help you out. I'm just kind of in a hurry. Can I put you on hold, or can I send you to our website? It's a tiny thing, but it's not really acting in my best interest. If you send me to a website.
Yeah, I think that's really, it's a frustration level. And I think that's when you really, the litmus test is, are you causing friction or frustration with that buyer, the person that you are trying to develop a relationship with and a consistent relationship with? And so it's interesting, just again, looking at those 3 different components there. Is there a litmus test? Is there some sort of assessment that you're doing? Okay. And so you can usually diagnose this fairly quickly, I'm assuming?
Yes. So I do have what I call, my tools called a trusted advisor assessment. Yes. And we can pinpoint very quickly where we need to focus our efforts. You asked a great question, of the 3 components, where do people fall down? And it's really in the acting in the best interest of others. When we do the assessment, what I typically find, if I assess an individual or a company hires me to find out what a company's trust equity score is, and we get the feedback from the customer, typically, not always, but typically the lowest score is in and around acting in the best interest of customers, this behavior part.
Gotcha. Okay.
When we do the individual, where we often rank lowest is on the empathy side, Jason. And so a lot of what we do in the training is we really spend time learning how to be empathetic, learning how to be better listeners. And one of the things that I find, I'm in a program right now with a group of 10 people from a number of different companies. And we walk through the steps of how to build trust. And of course, we spend time up front learning how to develop our active listening skills. And then we move on and we learn how to develop and dial up, if you will, our empathy skills. It's a very large gap that I've found with manufacturing companies that sell to distributors and wholesalers. They see the end customer. However, if I'm a manufacturing company, I have wholesalers and distributors as customers, as well as the end customers. So what we do in our programs is we actually take the time, and we have different exercises and tools, but at a very quick high level, we take the time to really place ourselves in the positions of a wholesaler or our distributor and look at, okay, what is it really like to be in their world? What is their perspective like? What are their challenges? What are their daily concerns? What are their issues? And what's really fun is I see folks that are warehouse managers or plant managers or people in shipping, customer service, anyone in a customer-facing role or on the front line, have the light bulbs go off. And they're like, oh, I never realized that's what it's like to be a distributor. And it's really interesting because that's an area that you can improve on. And that's the one area where there seems to be the largest gap.
Oh, I would agree. I think you just hit it right there. One of the greatest, fears or objections of distributors is that the manufacturers do not view them as the customer. They look at the end user, they jump that chain, even though you're the one writing the check. The distributor writes that check, yet all of the focus is on that next person in line, that end user customer. And that's really, it's disheartening for a distributor. And I think this causes a lot of mistrust and misunderstanding.
Which is understandable.
I understand why. I lived that world for a long time. But yeah, that's very interesting that you said that you find that the manufacturers are looking too far down the line. They don't stop.
I mentioned that because I actually worked with a manufacturing company, not in the flooring industry, but another industry, very similar but different. One of the biggest gaps we found was what you just said. And that is they were looking at the final or the consumer, and they did a great job marketing to them. However, they didn't focus on the situation and who their customer was. And so the CEO actually and the owner of the manufacturing company said to me, I just wish everybody would care as much about the customer as I do. That's why he called me. People don't call me because they say, hi, Natalie, or they don't Google trust. They don't think on a Monday morning, I want to talk to someone about trust.
Right.
Maybe in another world that might happen. But, what happens on a Monday morning for most business owners or leaders is they're driving to work or they're at the office and they hear things like, my new foreman just quit, or the CFO wants to meet with them because the sales numbers are down and the productivity's down, or they get an email in all caps that says my delivery didn't show up. Well, all of those problems, issues are impacted by trust. If you have high trust equity, you don't have these problems as much. So when people call me, it's trust affects company growth distributor relationships, referrals, operations, efficiencies. And so when this manufacturing company, the CEO called and said, I just wish everybody would care as much about the customer as I do. I said, well, tell me what's happening. He said, well, we're making great product, but it's not going out the door in a timely manner. They're not realizing how important this is to the wholesaler, because if we don't show up, the wholesaler then can't sell it and put it on their shelves. And so to get back to the empathy, when we went through the Becoming a Trusted Advisor training over several weeks, we spent a lot of time focusing on what is it like to be in the customer's shoes. And then we have a whole module on empathy and listening, and then a module on how to act in their best interest.
Through that, and you talked about these customer-facing roles in the organization, and I think that there are several that tend to be overlooked. One of them, as you were mentioning, in that warehouse environment, you are going to have customer-facing events, especially if they come to the company and will call and whatnot. But I think delivery drivers, highly customer-facing, yet they don't get any type of training like you're giving. That drives me crazy. Absolutely drives me. It's the last person that generally sees your customer on any sales transaction.
It's a very important person, right? It's just like the receptionist, the driver, or the person driving the truck, or the person in shipping is extremely important to the experience we have with a company.
Absolutely.
And so high performance companies do place warehouse managers, people in shipping, drivers, people on the front line. Anyone who's customers facing has a part to play in the customer's decision to trust, in the customer's decision to continue to buy, in the customer's decision to recommend.
Natalie, and then one other role came up in my head. What about credit managers, accounts receivable people? Do you find them in your trainings? Do you find them attending?
Yes, actually, in my current group, a manufacturing company in the food industry, we have a credit manager and an accounts receivable person in the group and someone in purchasing. So yes, we do have people from traditionally finance type departments because they too have an important part to play.
Isn't it all sales? It is all relationships and sales. That is interesting.
It's all relationships. And, one of the things that I think is really important for your listeners to remember is that every company, yes, we're all different. But at the end of the day, the critical trust risk point for every single company is the people. How they communicate, how they behave, and how they serve customers and stakeholders. It's the people. And the great thing about that is with all this uncertainty going on with supply chain or whatever, transportation issues, every business can invest in and manage their people and offer them the tools and the training, if you will, whatever it is to help them better communicate, behave, and serve. And when you do that, when you have higher trust equity, revenues go up. The propensity to continue to buy goes up. Loyalty's impacted.
So what about when we have a non-customer facing types of transactions? I'm really now moving towards that online relationship and the selling relationship there, where I've lost my ability to verbally communicate. I've lost my ability to be face to face. I can certainly, have behaviors in the way that I treat people. How do we establish trust in an online environment?
You can still demonstrate that you're listening carefully with empathy by having the right information online for the customer. And if you really, truly put yourself in the shoes of the customer and understand their situation, you can have the right information there for that. Online, we have to be really, really clear and concrete in our language. So it's simple. I mean, clarity inspires trust. If I don't understand and I don't really get it quickly, I don't trust. Online, we can be really transparent and honest. One thing that I think is really important with online is making it easy for people. And again, it comes back to communicating in a clear, easy way, being consistent. So if you have an online chat, make sure it's on. If you ask people to fill out the form, make sure that you have it set up with someone on the other end, or it's automated so that you actually do respond to people. I know on my website, as an example, we have a contact form, and someone on my team is looking at that all the time if I'm away.
Yeah.
The other thing on my website, as an example, we have you can sign up for a monthly article where there's different tools and a newsletter. Make sure that when you fill it in, you actually really do get the newsletter. More complex companies that may have 100 or thousands of SKUs. I have a client that has thousands of SKUs that they sell their products online. They don't manufacture, they're a wholesaler actually, and they sell hundreds, maybe thousands of SKUs online to make sure it's up to date and that it's working properly. People are more skeptical than ever before, Jason. And one of the things that's happened in the last, I'm going to say 3 years, is there's a real drive to personalization. And Netflix has trained us really well. I've never met anybody at Netflix, but they know what I like.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
And if you go on my profile, you get all these, romantic comedies and dramas. And if you go under my husband's profiles, it's like all these cop shows and action.
Sure.
And so when we're a manufacturing company, that's all impacting us. We have to make it as easy as possible and make it simple for people to use. I mean, the other big thing, not only has Netflix trained us, but Amazon has too, right?
Sure. Absolutely.
And so with Amazon, they do a wonderful job fulfilling an order. The other thing they do, which falls into the principal area of being honest and transparent, is they do an awesome job telling us where our order is.
Mm-hmm.
And just like Domino's Pizza does, you order pizza online, and manufacturing companies can do this. I have several clients that have created similar type dashboards, if you will. You order a pizza online, and when you submit your order, press buy, there's like a little thermometer that goes horizontally across the screen, and it tells you when your pizza's built, when it goes in the oven, right?
Yeah.
And then you see it. It's almost like a temperature gauge. Okay, it's in the oven. It comes out of the oven. In a warehouse, in a plant, it could be the order's been received. Your product's being made right now. It's gone to the warehouse. It's being picked. It's being picked up by shipping, or it's on the truck, on the train, with the courier, en route to you. It's being delivered. Transparency like that can aid in building trust online and building trust face to face too. I mean, we want to know where things are. And the challenge with this increased personalization is we want it to be just for us, right? Just like I want to see my stuff on Netflix. But I also want to know, where is the order and how's it going? And so companies can do that. If they don't have the systems, they can do that by telling people, by sending out an email, by calling people very consistently, letting them know. And I'm a big one for calling and picking up the phone, Jason, because they don't do it.
Yeah, one of the things that's kind of coming up for me is we're talking about how to build trust online and how to do this. It's dawning on me that the distributors I work with, and all of them have raced to build up their e-commerce offering, especially after 2020. That's really when they got into high gear. Many of them were pretty good at it before and they played. And I know that, either they were coming on or they were, really building up this e-commerce offering. But it's dawning on me that they are focusing on the wrong things. What I'm seeing is that these companies are so hyper-focused on product information management and pictures. They're not focusing on the service side and the communication side and the information dissemination side. Really yes, you've placed your order. Everything went through. I have now put your package together. It is now on shipping, waiting for UPS to pick it up. UPS has picked it up. They estimate. They haven't focused enough on that because that's really the behavioral piece that you spoke about and the things that made it great to have a personal face-to-face relationship. They're missing it. This is just an epiphany. So please.
I love that you're saying all this because the only competitive advantage many companies have, because there's so much choice out there, is the relationships they have with customers, even with customers we don't know. And the reason I use the word Netflix is because I don't know Netflix and they don't know me, but I actually do have a relationship with them. Now, that aside, if I'm a manufacturing company and I'm making the best product in the world and I'm a wholesaler, I'm going to work with the manufacturer that I have a relationship with. Mm-hmm. If all else is equal, it's about relationships. That is the most significant competitive differentiator we have. If I trust you, I'm going to sell your product. I'm going to support your product. I'm going to make sure it's on the shelves. If I don't trust you, I'm not giving you the space. See, it all comes down to trust, Jason.
It does. It all comes down to trust.
It's the foundation for customer experience. It's the foundation for deciding to buy, deciding to refer, deciding to be on someone's podcast.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I see that we are running a little late on time, but if you could share with the audience, how does someone engage you? And if they feel like, they're driving into, the CEO is driving into work and they're like, I got a whole lot of problems and it probably comes down to trust. How does someone engage you, Natalie?
You can come to my website, successthroughtrust.com, and contact me through that way. My telephone number is on my website. Telephone me. You can send me an email directly and I answer. It's not a robot. It's not someone else. It's me. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to hear from you. If you're interested in more information, you can go to my website under The Power of Trust and find lots of resources there and articles. Sign up for my monthly newsletter, and I do send out tips and tools on a regular basis.
Fantastic. Well, I'll link all of that in the show notes to make sure people can find you. But it's just been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing some of these things with us, because it really opened my eyes to a couple of areas of deficit. I'll put it that way. So
thanks for having me. It was fun. Trust can be learned, Jason. It's a skill. And I really appreciate you asking about it.
Fantastic. All right. Well, you take care. Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider sharing with your friends and colleagues. And don't forget to follow the show on your favorite podcast application. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by the brilliant team at the Creative Imposter Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, The Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.